Los Angeles or New York? Which one would you pick out of these two? I'm really excited to film today's video because both of these cities I hold really close to my heart and they mean a lot to me. But they are drastically different, like polar opposites. And they both have their upsides and downsides, of course. My name is Paulina, if it's your first time here, and I'm really excited to see you on my channel. I usually talk about psychology and well-being and nutrition, yada yada yada, but I recently have been talking more about locations because I've been moving places. I used to live in LA. I spent 6 years of my life in LA. And I just recently moved to New York. It happened like 2 months ago. I made a video about that as well. And now I feel like I'm living a bicoastal life because I still have a lot of close people back in LA, including my boyfriend. So I fly there a lot, like once a month. So I still feel really close to West Coast. And of course, I'm gonna keep visiting and eventually will move back to LA. But I think both of these cities are fantastic to live in. And in this video, I wanna guide you through my opinion on both of these cities, including different aspects like transportation and pace of life and health and cultural life, things like this. I hope you enjoy this little review on living in these two cities. So let's start with pace of life, because this is one of the most crucial aspects of the city and how you feel in the city. They are drastically different, although they do have something in common, but New York is crazy fast paced. Ever since I started living here, I feel like I'm constantly running and rushing and everything just seems really urgent and you're always trying to get everything done. So it's really hard to slow down in this city, and maybe this can drain you sometimes, but it's really, yes, it's like moving non-stop. They even do construction under my window at like midnight on weekdays and maybe sometimes on weekends too. So it's just people never stop going, people never stop working, people never stop hustling, and it can be a lot sometimes. Even people on the metro, everyone is rushing, people are forgetting to eat, including me. Ever since I moved here, I haven't been my healthiest self, I think. So that aspect can definitely be challenging. There are people who adapt to this change really quickly and easily because their personality is in tune of moving like really fast. But I think after 6 years of living in LA, I got more used to being a little more chill and slow, which I really appreciate. And you also think to yourself, I'm not gonna get sucked into this rushing mentality, but then the city kind of sucks you in. It's just the pace of life here and you start going with this pace of life. LA, on the other hand, is really slow, and I feel like in LA I have more time to think. I don't have to keep doing without ever reflecting on it. In LA I feel like I have my time to think, I have my time to analyze things, I have my time to just like be more relaxed and still get my work done, but in a non-urgent manner, I guess. The next thing that's very different between New York and LA is, of course, mode of transportation. What I really appreciate about New York is that you get a chance to walk a lot. Walking can literally be your mode of transportation. You, of course, like use subway as well, you can take Ubers and things like this, but you also get the opportunity to walk and walk and walk. Where I live in New York, I live like 3 blocks away from Central Park, so I've really tried to go there often and just take long walks. But even if I just commute to campus, it takes me like 10 minutes to get to subway, and then I take the train, and then when I go back, I also have to walk. So I still include walking in my everyday life. So I feel like that makes you really active in New York, and that part of life can be missing in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, you are so heavily relying on your car that even if you want to walk, people usually like drive to a place of walking. So you have to drive to walk. People don't really walk around neighborhoods, and you don't see that many people walking on streets unless you parked somewhere and you walk from your car and back to your car. So I think this aspect is nicer in New York because I just like being active in my everyday life. And in LA, you have to put additional effort to be active. While in New York, it's not even an effort because walking is right in front of your nose, like you can do it at any moment. Nature, that's the next thing we're gonna talk about. I came to love nature after living in LA, and that's something I miss every day in New York. In New York, it feels like you're surrounded by a concrete jungle, and the only place where you don't have that is Central Park, because you can be lost in Central Park among all the trees and greenery and sometimes forget that you're in the city. But I don't know that many green places besides Central Park that are easily accessible and right next to you. So I really miss nature because LA has so much nature. Like, you can go on so many different hikes and you can drive to the ocean at any moment that you wish. You can walk on the beach or run on the beach and just enjoy that. That's what I've been doing this past year, just driving to the ocean a lot and going on so many different hikes, because I really feel like nature brings me peace and joy, and I need that incorporated in my life. So that's the part I really miss about LA. Next aspect is cultural life. New York is way more abundant in terms of cultural life than LA, just because it's way more metropolitan and it's way closer to Europe, and it feels like it's more in the center of everything. LA still feels like it's far away from everything. It's just West Coast is really far from Europe, but it's also far from Asia, while between New York and Europe is like a 5-hour flight. So it's not as bad. So yes, New York feels like it's a cultural hub. It's probably the biggest cultural hub in the United States. So you can have a cultural program every single day if you choose to. You can go see ballet, you can go to all these exhibitions all around New York, galleries, you can entertain yourself as much as you want, and the options are pretty much limitless. So that's really exciting, but also it can be overwhelming because you can develop a sense of FOMO, like you don't want to miss out, but there's just too much happening, so you will have to miss out on something. In terms of entertainment and culture, also I feel like there are way more restaurants in New York than in LA, and a lot of them can feel like Europe, and even some neighborhoods in New York can feel like Europe and more this like old history, and LA doesn't have that feeling. So in terms of culture, if you're really crazy about culture, New York is probably more of a place for you. LA still has a lot, obviously, because it's a very big city, but New York has more to offer in that sense. And the last aspect I want to consider in this video is loudness. New York is really loud, and it's loud at all times. Manhattan is really loud. I don't know how it's in different boroughs. But yes, LA doesn't feel as loud, and LA definitely has a lot of quiet neighborhoods where you can just like leave your home and walk around and hear birds and just let it be quiet. But in New York, I don't think it happens. I feel like there's noise outside of my apartment 24/7, and there's a siren every 30 minutes, probably every 1 hour. I hear a siren passing by my window. So New York is very loud, and ever since I moved here, I occasionally get a sense that I just want to go upstate or something and just isolate from the noise in some very quiet rural area, in some cabin in the woods, because sometimes I just crave an escape from the loudness of the city. And in the end, I want to say that there's no solution that fits everybody. There are New York people and there are LA people. I feel like at the moment I'm more an LA person, but before I definitely used to be more like a New York person. But after living in LA, I just started appreciating being in the moment and being more quiet and having more time to just enjoy life. Because in New York, sometimes it feels like you're constantly rushing through your life and you're running and everything is really urgent. But then I have a question, like, what are you rushing towards? Are you rushing towards the end of your life? Like, what's the point of all this rushing? I guess I'm trying to have more time in my life. And in New York, I sometimes feel robbed of this time. I could just go somewhere because I'm just swamped with all the urgency of things here. And yes, I guess LA also has a very big emotional attachment for me, which you can never underestimate, because emotions are kind of our everything. We do have a very strong emotional system in place. Thank you so much for being here and watching it. I hope you enjoyed, and let me know which one you prefer, LA or New York. I will see you in my next video, guys. Bye.